it is our resident. They drive everything that we do. We love them. They vote for their representatives, and they're called councillors, and the councillors, when they're acting as members, tell us which direction they want us to go in, but ultimately that is who we serve. You've got to ask the questions and ask the follow-ups, really understand what that person's role in that piece of work was and what impact they have. I'm very excited about AI. I've seen some amazing things happen, but I can see it really reducing the administrative burden on the council and on the council officers, and that frees up cash that can be spent on the front line in helping people who find themselves in a vulnerable situation and require council services.
Hi, today we're going to be speaking to Joanne Cumper, who works in Harrogate in talent and acquisition. She's going to be talking a little bit about her role and about the agenda for our upcoming LGPN North event. So Joanne, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So let's just get right into it. So you're currently working in talent acquisition and executive search. Could you tell us a little bit about your role and how you're finding the right digital talent and how you're helping councils meet their current challenges?
Okay, so I think what's unique about my role is that I sit within the DDAT team. So I sit in digital data and technology, and typically I'm reporting to an AD or a CDIO or the managing director of the digital data and technology team. So it's really serving the need of the technical and digital requirements for that council. And I think that creates a different perspective than working in the HR function, who might have one approach, which we've seen at times be somewhat conservative and very structured. Now, we work within the boundaries of the rules that we have to, but we do take a slightly different and more candidate-driven approach to finding applicants and people interested in moving into technology, digital and data in local government across London. So you will call us in if you've done something, if you've been up to something, typically a new target operating model, but something else might have happened. You might be, bringing in a new piece of software and you need to skill a team up for a very short period of time. And that's when you'll probably get me in to help you. And we embed ourselves within the organisation, working with all the hiring managers, compliant with all the requirements in terms of the council's way of doing things when it comes to inclusion and diversity and governance. All of that has to be met, and that's absolutely done. But the difference is we will go out and find the talent for you. So yes, it's advertised on the council's website, but we also will proactively go out and find talent for you who might come in from out of sector. And that's the real difference that we make, is we bring in this out of sector talent who are driven by the technology. They are driven by what it can do and ultimately end user, which in councils, it is our resident. They drive everything that we do. We love them. They vote for their representatives, and they're called councillors, and the councillors, when they're acting as members, tell us which direction they want us to go in, but ultimately that is who we serve, and they are core to everything we do. And getting people from outer sector who might have come from a much more customer driven environment actually is a really good idea. They've got that customer service orientation to them. They're thinking about what will make life easier for that particular resident. Now, we have different residents. Some are net benefactors, and they're people who are paying into the council, and others are net beneficiaries, and they are people who are most vulnerable and require services from us. Both are equally as important. How this gentleman, who might drive a Porsche, live with his husband, and both of them work, how they interact with us is going to be at pace. He wants to be able to do it 24/7, ideally online, not talk to anybody. Can it be automated? How are we going to make sure he gets an amazing customer experience? Equally, we might have somebody over here who might need a bit more time from us, might be drawing down our services. We might need to really understand what their needs are, and we need to be able to interact with them on a one-to-one basis, and maybe have a social worker in the house saying, well, what is it you need from us and how can we help you? And then deploy as much technology as we can to support that individual to have their best life or their best start within the borough. So it's very different. It's very diverse. That's very exciting. Not knowing that, if you're out of sector, is something that we like to break down, understanding what drives us, what the resident experience is the most important thing. The resident drives everything that we do. So breaking that down, bringing people in from out of sector and really changing the perception that we have, because what we do is cool. I don't think people realise it. What we actually do in technology and digital and data in councils, actually it's quite cool. Some of the stuff our colleagues have done across London, absolutely amazing. And breaking those down and the impact that's having on residents is fantastic. So I was a bit rambly, but that's kind of what I do. I go in and I help them deliver.
Okay, great. So you told us a little bit about your role. So how can effective talent acquisition strategies help local authorities kind of bridge that digital gap that we're seeing across the sector?
Well, it's not just across sector. I think digital across the digital sector as a whole.
Yeah.
If you're in a commercial organisation, you're going to be struggling as well. So attracting that talent and having those pre-application conversations, this is what we do. You know, it is far more interesting than the interaction that you see on the website. You might, that might be your only interaction with the council is paying your council tax and making sure you've got your parking. Okay, but did you know in Brent they have an incubator?
God.
Yeah, I know. They have an incubator to help. And actually one of the people who's going to be at the event, Rahana Ramesh, set that up when she was at Brent. Part of the team that set that up. Wonderful chap called Peter Gadsden was involved in that as well. Collaborating with people within community. I was there at the launch. We got people like Infosys there, and it was amazing. Looking at underrepresented minorities who are entrepreneurs, needing that base to set up their business and learn those skills and learn from each other. And developing them. And I think the only caveat she had was you have to, when you expand, you have to employ Brent residents as your staff. Fantastic. That's one thing they're doing. I think also at Brent, they're doing lots of learning and development. They partnered with Infosys and launched something both for residents, for people who worked, and within borough, and for our colleagues as well on skilling them up with digital talent as well. So there's a lot that we can do in sector that we are doing that if we just copy, if we look over the border at what the other councils are doing, you know, beg, borrow, steal. Don't reinvent the wheel. Beg, borrow, steal. See if you can get it from them as well, and take those ideas and implement them within your council as well. So one is skilling people up. One is breaking those myths down. I mean, we spoke earlier about one of your friends who was neurodiverse, and
she was able to basically get the questions ahead of time for the interview, so she was able to actually prepare her answers and actually sort of be more organised. It's about kind of doing that prep. There's nothing wrong. It's just how different people sort of learn and kind of see things.
The Canadian government do that for every piece of interview that they do. And we did it at Hackney Council when we were doing a piece of creating a new target operating model for them and releasing those questions ahead of time. You might think, oh, they can use AI or they can cheat on the answers. They can't. That's for the skill of the interviewer. That's where the panel have got to earn their money, I'm afraid. You've got to ask the questions and ask the follow-ups. Really understand what that person's role in that piece of work was and what impact they have had on their organisation. So it might require a bit more skill on the side of the interviewer, but that's what you're being paid for, do your job properly. Sorry for that. Colleagues will be like, oh, thanks, Jo. But yeah, that's an important piece of what we do is bring that new talent in and then develop them. So I know there was a piece in the Economist that was against actually using some of the apprenticeship levy for existing talent. I'm actually all for it. I've spoke to a colleague today actually at Hackney who is doing an MBA through the apprenticeship levy at a local university, and she said, I'm applying everything I learn every day in my job. So upskilling all talent across the organisation is really important. Getting that potential talent in, helping them at that entry level and giving them an opportunity to grow and develop as young people or as more mature students into organisations, getting their careers in place and helping them and we may not be able to pay for you to do that course, but we can give you the time to go and do that course. So there's so many different interventions that we can have, but my role is breaking down those myths and helping people understand what their potential is within a council environment and what they can achieve, which is significant.
Well, so you've spoken a little bit about strategies. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that at LGPN. So why do you actually think LGPN is important for local government sector right now?
I love coming to these events. I went to one recently And it was so delightful. We were talking about ERP systems. I know not everyone's cup of tea or interest point, but it was fascinating. It was such fun as an event, seeing people who are at different points in that journey of, we're literally at Haringey, we were literally at the start. Oh my goodness, we've had SAP for 24 years. We need to think about a new system. Who are we going to go and talk to? And councils who have gone through that process, where they've arrived at it, how they've got it to launch hugely successfully, and picking up ideas from them. Vendors were there. They were delightful in sharing their knowledge. Literally, you're sitting there next to somebody who's already done that. And when you go back to the office, you can say, I heard that RBKC did this. And in fact, I talked to Phil Rice at this event, and he was marvellous, and he really helped me. And actually, I also met Darren Mann there, and I can give him a call. And he said he'll come in and talk to us. And, I was at this event, and every colleague was saying, Jo, you must call us. Whatever Haringey needs, give us a call. We'll help you. So that is what you do. And the vendors do that as well. They understand it's not a sell and, process that will take place in an instant. It's a long integration with and a long building of the relationships with your potential client, and I think that's what the event does. It brings us together, and that collaboration idea. We were talking earlier about our favourite thing, paying for parking.
Yeah.
Why isn't there one app? Why didn't one person invent one app?
That'd be so good.
I've heard the reason is that there are different parking providers, but we think there should be one government app for parking, and then you don't have to stand there and go, what have I got to download now?
Trademark it right now.
Let's do it. From this event.
Yeah, definitely. That'll be on the agenda next year, where we're talking about our parking app. Lovely. So you've had an impressive career sort of spanning digital, data science and government. What's been your most memorable project or achievement that made a real difference to local authority and its residents?
Oh, I get that squeal of delight when I see success in my candidates, when they're in post and they do things well, or they get promoted, or they get the job they really deserve. I recently had enormous pride, and she's here at this event today, when Rahana Ramesh was appointed the director for Hackney Council, which I had nothing to do with, but I have been with her through her career and done a number of pieces of work with her. And yeah, it was just a huge delight to see somebody start to really fulfill their potential and move forward in their careers. So I get a little squeal of delight. And another example of that is Mel Rose, who is the CDIO at Islington Council. Hopefully she won't mind me saying so. Hopefully I'll call her before this goes out in water. But we tell the story. We sat next to each other at an International Women's Day event at the British Library. And we were just chatting. And she went, I'd love to get into local government. I went, you sat next to the right lady. And ultimately, I placed her at Tower Hamlets as the head of service. And she is phenomenal. She's one that we all watch and love. And we're delighted she's got this big role. So those things delight us. But equally, an apprentice who then becomes a manager, then steps up, becomes head of service, all of that, I get a real kick. And then seeing the impact they have. And then the work Yogita did during COVID at Barnet Council, they had the worst figures, Barnet Council, in terms of infection rates. And she worked in the health sector and the data sector at the council, and just got all the data together, looked at the communication strategies that they had in place, and realised that the best way that they can get the message out around COVID, the vaccine, how to avoid infection, was through communities. And she used data and data science in order to come to the outcome. And they started to fall down that league table, and they got pretty near the bottom towards the end. That kind of work that councils do, just through examining data, and her intervention, just fantastic. So that's what gives me a bit of a kick when I see my colleagues do magic.
That's amazing. 'Cause, I didn't know that. So just using data to sort of,
how you communicate the story. So she learned that in terms of the diverse groups that they had in Barnet, the best way was through community groups to get the message through, was find the community leaders, give them the messaging, and get them to then pass it through their church or their synagogue or whichever environment they're in, or the football club, whatever, get it out through the word of mouth. And that was the most effective way that they got their figures down.
Okay.
She did that through data.
Yeah. So how about the people that aren't as far in their digital journey then? What advice would you give to them about building the right team?
Beg, borrow, steal.
Yeah.
Do not reinvent the wheel. If somebody's done something well elsewhere, steal their idea it's the best way forward, and actually find people who've got experience and can bring that experience to your organisation and leapfrog. So some councils are more advanced. We've seen them. I think Waltham Forest is doing very well. RBKC, I think, is doing well. Westminster's doing very well. They're going to hate me for saying this, but there will be talent in there that you might want to look at. Greenwich, I believe, is doing very well. The talent in there that you can go and talk to and bring them onto your organisation, even if it's simply in an advisory role, but reach out to colleagues. And there are some amazing things that other councils have done up in Manchester, Salford, Warsaw. They've all done some amazing things. It's not just, I am London biased, obviously I work for London councils, but there are some other councils out of London who've done some amazing things that, again, you can beg, borrow, steal. Edinburgh City, Deborah's up there doing some amazing stuff. Just some fantastic stuff down in Dorset. Find out who's doing what and go and learn from them. And then fit that into your organisation, what will work best for you.
Yeah. Talk to them at the event, find out what they're doing.
Talk to them at the event. Find out invite them for coffee.
Yeah.
Get them in front of your SLT.
So going back to LGPN, so on the agenda, talk a little bit about digital inclusion and how it's being discussed as a sort of cornerstone for effective transformation. Could you share a simple example of how councils can ensure their digital services remain accessible to all residents?
Well, we spoke about it before. You came up with it. Crash test dummies.
Yeah.
Designed for men of a certain age and height and weight, not for women, which is why we were getting more injured in car crashes. Bit rubbish, really. You didn't consider 50% of the population as you made a safety design feature. Mm-hmm. So in your team, have those service designers who are experts in inclusion, and you can hire experts in inclusion into your organisation as well. Yeah. I believe Merton are currently looking for an inclusion expert to join their council. Find them, get them in, think about, if we do this, can somebody who uses a screen reader be able to access this information? Can this be easily translated into another language?
Yeah.
Can we use voice to text in this example? Can we use text to voice in this example? Well, we can make sure that the majority of our residents are included, and what adjustments do we need to make? So there was a terrible example, awful example. And I understood why this particular council made it, but in order to apply to be homeless, you had to do it online, which was an incredibly painful consideration. Now, if they'd have picked some sort of, most homeless people actually have mobile phones, that's the way they're connected to the world. And if they thought of some sort of online way using smartphone, something, there'd have been another way of doing it. But that put a lot of people off. That was a lot of the feedback that particular council got. So really thinking about the needs of those individuals and how we can meet those needs in a digital kind of environment. And I think that some councils now, you can go to the library and do things online and have someone there to help you. So there are ways we are achieving those outcomes that we want. Just got to think a little bit more, take that next step in the process.
So final question. So looking ahead next few years, what's exciting you most about the future of local government and digital transformation?
I'm very excited about AI. I've seen some amazing things happen. I know that Brent Council had they had us all there for an amazing day where they deployed AI and automation in their complaints for housing, and they were using it to read through the case notes and come up with the answer. Now, there was still human intervention required, but it took a lot of the admin tasks out of out of the day of the officer. So I've tried it a little bit in recruitment. It's not necessarily working. I've not been able to see it help me really. Some admin tasks I can see it supporting what I do. So if I do something 2 or 3 times, then yes, I've built the framework that I want it to work to. Then that can be quite effective. But I can see it really reducing the administrative burden on the council and on the council officers, and that frees up cash that can be spent on the front line in helping people who will find themselves in a vulnerable situation and require council services to support them. So I think that's really, really exciting.
Thank you so much for talking to me today. So if you want to speak to Joanne, you can go to LGPN North on the 22nd to 23rd of May. Visit lgpn-uk.com and register.